Live.
Well, hello and welcome to the Waking Up Spiritually podcast. So happy to have you here with us. I'm Wendy Rose Williams, and I am a past life energy healer. What I do is help people release energy that does not serve them anymore. And this energy can be really hard to shift on your own. Things like chronic pain, both physical and emotional, as well as anxiety and depression. And my website is wendyrosewilliams.com. And I'd like to turn the floor over to Gregg Kirk, my co-host, and he'll introduce today's topic. But welcome, we're so glad you're here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gregg Kirk. You can go to my website, greggkirk.com. That's spelled GREGGKIRK.com to find out the many things I do. Mainly, I do energy healing, in-person Reiki sessions with tuning forks, and I do remote sessions that can be a whole span of energy work where the main point is to remove blocks to your wellness, both mind, body, and spirit. I also run an online group healing circle every Sunday, and you can click the events tab on that website to find out when those are scheduled. But they're usually noon Eastern time every Sunday. Not always. This last Sunday I didn't do it because I went to a Lyme disease conference, and that's another thing I help patients with. If you're a patient of Lyme disease, come to my website, or you can go to lymerecoveryclinic.com. So today, Wendy and I are broadcasting on a Sunday. We're broadcasting on a Wednesday because I was at a Lyme conference this Sunday in Connecticut. So we had to move our traditional date, our traditional time. So thank you all for joining us today live. And for those who are seeing us on YouTube or also on the podcast, thank you for joining us on a different day. So today's topic is spiritual healing modalities. And I'm going to pull this deck up for those of you who are able to see us on YouTube or Facebook. But Wendy, I'm going to turn this. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to talk for a bit. So Wendy and I decided we would like to do a full episode on different forms of healing modalities for spiritual issues. And these spiritual or energetic issues can cause physical illnesses, but we are today talking about spiritual energetic maladies that can be fixed with these spiritual modalities. So I'm going to start from what causes these problems, and all forms of disease start with different forms of stress. So physical stress. So if you've actually had a powerful injury to your body, a concussion, any form of trauma, a car accident, a fall, you've been attacked, you've been mugged, any of these things, these physical things can disrupt your immune system and cause obviously physical issues, but it could, if these happen in a past life, it can continue echoing into lives, all subsequent lives. Chemical stress, so ingesting toxins from an unhealthy diet, being exposed to toxins like heavy metals or mold or putrefied food, or being exposed to viral or bacterial infections. All these things obviously can cause disease, but they can also impair treatment if you're in the middle of trying to fix another disease or another ailment, and then you get exposed to this. Emotional stress. So this is something, this is maybe the biggest cause of disease in our time these days. Stress at the job, the death of someone close to you, disruption in your finances. Any of these things can impact being around toxic people at work, at home. All these things can bring your immune system down and cause physical maladies. Big traumas like this in a past life can also they can ricochet and echo into all subsequent lives. And so this is another thing about emotional stress, remaining in a fight or flight or a constant state of emotional distress, grief, or panic can not only cause disease, it can stop treatment, it can stop you from getting better. And then finally, energetic spiritual stress. So past life traumas that I just spoke about earlier, psychic attacks, energetic attachments, energy leaks in your auric field, and any other forms of non-physical stress can cause physical blocks to the energy flow and to any kind of treatment that's happening physically. And these things can ultimately trigger disease, physical disease, if they're dramatic enough. And anything you want to comment on or add to this, Wendy?
Yes, I'd just like to add two quick things to that. I mean, disease, when you think about the word, it's dis-ease. So we're just working to restore ease and grace to get back to health. And all these forms of stress can also show up, in addition to showing up as disease, they can show up as severe physical pain. So that's another way that people can go. Some people have a great immune system, but they're carrying around so much physical and emotional pain based on stress. And again, it's a different type of disease. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. All right, let's talk, before we get into the modalities, let's talk about diagnostics. So how can you find out what exactly is happening to you through mind, body, spirit? So one of the most well-known things, I think, for physical and even energetic treatments, finding out what treatment is needed for you at a particular time, is something called applied kinesiology or muscle testing. So it's where a practitioner, traditionally, you'll hold your arm out, you'll hold a substance where the practitioner is asking, is this good for you? And you'll hold your arm out, you put this up to your chest, and then they'll just, with 2 fingers around your wrist, they'll try to push your arm down. And if the substance is not good for you, your arm is easily pushed down. If it's fine, then that's basically how it works in a nutshell. There's also, people use pendulums, they use all different kinds of things. There's swaying. You can learn, apply kinesiology for yourself. So I was at the Lyme conference over the weekend. I was selling different products, and a woman brought one of the things I was selling up to her chest, and she swayed, and she said, "Wow, this tea is really good for me." So she was really good at it. So this is something you can.
That's what I do. I use my body as the pendulum. I do the muscle sway, and forward is yes, and backwards is no.
So obviously you can learn it yourself, or you can go to a practitioner for this. Or, so you can go to a medical or a spiritual intuitive, so somebody like Wendy or me, if you have some sort of vague ailment that you don't know what's going on, come to us. But there are also medical intuitives as well. So they're not so much spiritual. These are people who just know the physical body really well in a very intuitive way. And this is another thing that's better than putting contrast dyes that have metals in them and going and getting an MRI or something. This is an alternative to that. And then finally, there's something called the Eternal Tarot. I first found out about it, or it was mentioned in the Law of One books. It's not regular tarot. In fact, specifically, they talk about in the Law of One, the Eternal Tarot is the original tarot with Hebrew letters, and it lines up with the Kabbalah. It's a 78 card deck that supposedly was given to Moses from Metatron. And this Eternal Tarot is the original structure, and it lines up with the Kabbalah, and it's not just about flipping cards. Like, for those of you who can see this picture, every card on the deck has Egyptian symbols on it with Hebrew letters, and there's actually protection rituals you do before this. There's a bit of ceremony you do, so it's not like a regular flipping angel cards or anything like that. This is something that's more of a ceremony and supposedly more accurate. Now, I have a deck. I can tell you I've done it every now and then. It's not something I do all the time, but I do, in big, pivotal points in my life where I'm at a crossroads, I'll do the Eternal Tarot. So look that up. It's available. You can go to Amazon.com and just do a search for Eternal Tarot. So that's something that you can learn. It comes with a booklet. You can learn it. It's pretty cool. It's another tool in your toolbox to try to help you discern what's going on. Okay. Anything to add, Wendy?
Just that sounds amazing, the Eternal Tarot deck. And is there anything in the world that Amazon does not sell?
Right.
That was their mission, was to connect to everything, and they've certainly done it
They've
well.
done it. Yep, exactly.
So let's look at, what do you do? Because this disease, this pain, this just vague feeling of things not being right, a lot of us can feel it in our heart, and it can just feel like our heart is broken and we just don't feel right. So what is the solution? How do you move out of that place? And that was the inspiration for today with spiritual healing modalities. So we've spent several episodes on past life regression, and that is my go-to because that is what is the most effective for me. So that's why I became a practitioner, as well as also my number one client. I just love to have past life regression sessions because they are so helpful. And you can heal and release the energy, and you can also bring in forgotten abilities that are just amazing. So one more mention for past life regression. And if you'd like to learn more, you simply go to my website, which is wendyrosewilliams.com, and you can request a complimentary 15-minute phone appointment with me there. And Reiki, Gregg and I are both Reiki masters. And just think of Reiki, the 7 major Reiki chakras in your body, root chakra on up through your crown, as being your major life force energy centers. So everyone can benefit from Reiki because it's uniquely gentle yet powerful. And Gregg, haven't you joked quite a few times? What do you call Reiki?
The gateway modality.
the gateway drug to
Right,
all the good stuff with the
right.
spirituality.
Exactly. Yeah, they
energy.
used to call marijuana the gateway drug back in our 70s, anti-drug classes where they were trying to, scare us about drugs or whatever your take on it. So I always thought that every healer that I know today, the first modality they learned was Reiki. And most of them, I've got a slide later, so I don't want to, preview it too much, but most everybody I know learned Reiki first and then either does some form of it or has learned other modalities like you, Wendy. And then, but that was where they got started. That's how they got to understand the chakra system and moving energy around. So it's important. It's fundamental.
Exactly. And then ThetaHealing. Do you want to comment on that, Gregg?
Yeah, I got a quick slide on that. So that's the main thing about yeah, it's about removing limiting beliefs. That's the main part of it. Yeah.
Perfect. And then there's also the concept of having an Akashic Records reading, which we talked about in one of our earlier sessions. And I shared a past life where my name was Lily and I was in Japan. And I found that through an Akashic Records reading where someone else did the reading for me regarding my past life energy. So it's great if you choose that you want to work with an Akashic Records reader, and they certainly will be doing it based on your permission because they're going into your holy book of life, and that is sacred information. So you just want to make sure, if you are going to have one of those, make sure that the practitioner is also a healer, because personally, I don't find it very helpful. This doesn't happen often, but just occasionally you'll get this narration of all this stuff that went on in your past life. And then you're like, oh my goodness, now what do I do with this big hairball? You just need someone to help you unweave it and process it. And you need the healing from it or the inspiration from it, because again, it can be the uplifting. Same thing with a psychic reading or another type of past life reading that's not specifically an Akashic record reading of your past lives. And I'm going to get into personal astrology in more depth because there's different types of astrology. There is world astrology that's impacting everyone. There's astrology for our countries based on the day that the country was born, so to speak, declared its independence or whatever led to that country being formed. And then we also have our personal astrology, which is based on a natal chart, also called a birth chart. And some of the important concepts and things that an astrologer can help you with in that area is your north node and your south node, and knowing what planets are there and what those planets represent in those areas on your natal chart. There's also something called your Chiron wound, and Chiron is not technically a planet, but it is a very significant wound, and we all come in to heal some things. So knowing where that is in your chart, what house it's in, because there's 12 houses, which we'll get into more, is important. And there's also something called the Lilith shadow area that can be important. And shadow, it's just those parts of us we don't like, but you can't avoid them. You just got to embrace them, and you've got to work with them and embrace that shadow, so to speak. And then we're also going to get into some personal numerology, and we're going to go through and help you calculate your life path number, because numerology is such a big topic, but we're going to look at your personal numerology, your life path. And there's also something called your destiny number, your soul number, your personality number, attitude number, power name number, and birthday number. So you can certainly get deep and wide into this topic through your own study. Or what I did was I worked with a spiritual numerologist, and I just had a life-changing reading and session for her, with her. And then that's where I'm going to share some of that information from. There's also something called human design, which I only became familiar with recently. And it's a pretty new modality. Just think of modalities as healing techniques or types when we're using that word modality. And there's 5 types of humans and how we're designed, how we're put together, which is manifestors, generators, manifesting generators, which, as you can tell, or as you can likely guess, is a combination. It's a blending of the manifestor and the generator. There's projectors and there's reflectors. And that's in order of which is the most common, is the manifestor, and then going on in that order. There's also a very interesting type of reading you can have done called an intuitive eye reading. And the eyes really are the windows to the soul in so many ways. And intuitive eye readings are based on archetypes. And the 7 major archetypes are priest or priestess, sage, so that wise person who just intuitively knows things, knows important, helpful things. The scholar, so that person who really just loves to learn. King or queen. The server, the artisan, so that creative, and the warrior. So we'll get into some detail on that. And another way that's been so helpful for me to up level, to heal and release, to raise my vibration, is I have gotten deep and wide with angelic channelings and healings. And I work with a lovely, amazing gal who is an angelic trance channel. So I have my own healing sessions every other week. So that's been a big important epiphany area for me. And many of us are star seeds. We have incarnated on other planets, and starseed readings can be really, really important and help you recognize. And Gregg and I did a special episode on that and got into some detail about that. So there's kind of an overview of some of the modalities you may have heard about or may not have.
Great. Thank you, Wendy. Let's go right into Reiki, the gateway modality. Probably one of the more well-known modalities, I believe. Energy healing, hands-on healing, palm healing. These are some of the different names for what's known as Reiki, which was developed in Japan by a guy named Mikao Usui, who taught his system to more than 2,000 people up until his life ended and he died in 1926. So the first Reiki clinic in the United States was started in 1970, and today there are hundreds of offshoots. So Usui Reiki was what I learned. I think it's the original. There's literally hundreds of them now. I just did a quick search prior to putting the deck together today, and I was going to name a few, but it's not even worth it. Kundalini Reiki, I didn't know that was a thing. Just you name it, there's a form of Reiki. And I don't know anything about those forms, but I know Usui Reiki, the thing that is great about it is it involves attunements. So that it involves you opening up your chakra system and being open to healing. And then you learn some of the symbols, and then you learn how to move energy around, how to hold space. And like I said, it's the fundamental modality to learn how to do other healing modalities as well. So yeah, and anything
Yes, just
you
to
want to
add to
end it?
that, you can do self Reiki, and that is very worthwhile. So, meaning you can do Reiki on your own body. And I think that's so helpful because healers need to heal themselves. And you can also do Reiki on your animals, on your plants, just on many different things. And Reiki can be done remotely. I had no idea that what I was doing when I first started waking up spiritually, and I just was getting into having like a morning ritual of grounding and clearing my energy. And then I would find myself standing, and I would just be thinking about someone that I really wanted to help and that I knew wanted healing and felt was open to it. And I would have my hands up and I would be sending healing. And when I then went through and got the Reiki healing, the different levels, because you go through Reiki level 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then master. And I kept waiting. I thought, why is there no discussion of this? And it's because it was all the way at the end of now we're getting to remote
Right,
remote Reiki.
right.
So I was glad to then, kind of ground that back into what I had already been instinctively doing, because I was just simply remembering having done it in a past life. And I was also trained in the Yasui method. And I actually recall knowing Mr. Yasui in Japan in a past life. So that was really neat to kind of have that come full circle too.
Very cool. So let's move to birth natal chart personal astrology reading.
Yes. So you're able to, at no charge, go to astro.cafeastrology.com, and you can run your own birth or natal chart there at no cost and get that printed out. And that chart may look incomprehensible to you, but it comes with a nice explanation. So you will want to know not only your date of birth, but the time of birth is really, really helpful. It's so much more accurate. And the location. Location only needs to be as specific as the city or town. And from that, if you picture that exact moment of your birth, that date, that time, that location, so the latitude and the longitude, all the planets were in the sky in a certain position at that exact moment. So then the way your birth or natal chart is drawn up is based on 12 houses. So there's houses in this wheel, for those of you who are able to look at what the example of a birth or natal chart is. The first house is the house of self, and it's about our appearance, it's about our image, And you can think of it as I am, is what that first house is. And you won't have planets in every house in your birth or natal chart. And it just simply means it's not a focus area, because it doesn't make sense in any one lifetime. You're not trying to focus in all 12 areas. You will in other lifetimes. So for instance, I don't have any planets in the house of self. This is not, it's just a generic example that I'm showing here. This is not my natal chart. The second house is about values, money, material possessions. It's the I have house. Third house in your natal chart is your communication style. It's the I think, which then kind of leads into how you come across. And as we know, communication, oh my goodness, fraught with difficulties. It can be so hard to have good, clear, kind communication with people, because guess what? We're used to telepathy at home. So to have to wordsmith it all when we've all got such different experiences and values and cultures, it can be challenging. The fourth house is our inner foundation. It's your roots, it's your ancestors, including your mother. And the fourth house is the I feel house. And the fifth house is your inner child. It's your joy, it's your creativity, it's your romance, it's your I will house. Sixth house is about health and routine, mindfulness, responsibility, organization. It's the I analyze house. So again, what's important is what planets are in that particular house, how many of them, and what those planets represent. Seventh house is about partnerships, and I balance is the definition. Eighth house, I have most of my planets in the eighth house. No surprise. Death, rebirth, sexuality, other people's money, I desire. So doesn't that make perfect sense for a past life regressionist to be in the lots of planets in the house of death and rebirth, which also ties in with sexuality. I mean, an orgasm is little death. So they're all very related. And other people's money, what's meant by that, it's things like inheritance, it's taxes, it's those sorts of things. Ninth house is our house of higher learning. It's about travel, publishing, commerce, and in two words, it's about I see. I've got a lot of planets in that house also. 10th house is about legacy and reputation, career, achievements, authority, success, father figures. I use is the shorthand for what the 10th house is about. And I've got a fair number of planets there too. 11th house is about networks and visions, goals, wishes, purpose, community. It's the I know house. And the 12th house is where I have a bolus of planets. It's the house of spirituality and undoing. It's secrets, it's the subconscious, it's the dreams, it's the karma, it's our strengths and weaknesses in a lot of ways. It's the very primal, and it's the I believe. So that in a nutshell is what the houses are about. And as I said, it's just really, it's really neat to jump on there. And if you've never looked at what your own natal chart and birth chart is, you can do it for free from that location and get the interpretation with it too, so that you'll be able to understand this sort of chart and graph, which is based on Western astrology, because there's different types, there's different schools of astrology, some of which are thousands of years old, which is just pretty neat. So any comments there, Gregg?
No, fascinating. So let's talk a bit about theta healing. This is a technique that I've learned. I've gone all the way through it like Reiki. I'm a theta healing master and can teach it. It's a technique. It's a world-renowned method that was first created by Vienna Steibel in 1995. It's a training method for your mind, body, and spirit that allows you to clear limiting beliefs and live life with the positive thoughts, developing virtues, and all the all that we do through meditation and prayer, the theta healing technique creates a positive lifestyle. So what is this exactly? So one of the techniques in theta healing that I found most powerful is the practitioner and the patient sit on chairs facing each other. Practitioner puts their hands out like this, or the patient puts their hands out like this, and the practitioner puts their hands over them. They face each other. And within a few minutes, through a number of trained questions, practitioner asks the person the thing that makes them happy and the thing that doesn't make them happy. And within minutes, you get right to the root of what's going on with the person, to the point where they start getting uncomfortable, they start getting defensive, and then eventually they usually burst into tears.
I was going to say some tears have got to be following if you're getting a breakthrough there.
Yeah, it's extremely powerful. It's very psychological, and but this gets to the psychological root, the energetic root. You start with the mind, and then it turns into an energy session after that. But it's pretty fascinating, pretty amazing. So that's that's all I have to say about theta healing.
Sounds wonderful.
Good
I've
stuff.
never had a session like that. That sounds wonderful.
I have to say it's uncomfortable because
I'm sure
every person has their own. The first time I did it, literally the practitioners said to me, like, what about this? And then I said, oh no, I that doesn't bother me. And then she kept poking at it like a woodpecker, and within 5 minutes I was bawling my eyes out. And, incredible. But like I said, it's tough work. So.
So let's talk about intuitive eye reading. And this is a specialty type of practitioner who is literally, they might be physically looking into your eyes, which, let me tell you, got uncomfortable because of the amount of time it took to do it. So even though she and I were in person together and she was lovely, she also had me submit several photos where you could clearly see my eyes, as well as the close-ups of some other people in my life that I wanted to understand what was going on in the relationship to work to up-level and smooth that relationship. And the concept is that there are these 7 archetypes that I mentioned: priestess, priest, server, artisan, warrior, scholar, king, queen, and sage. And we all have 3 of these archetypes are kind of our primary ones, which you can think of as your major talents. It's the areas where you really, really excel. And then they come out in an order of priority. So the practitioner is figuring out through really studying your eyes what those archetypes or major talent areas are. And then there's also something called masking, which is us being in just like everything has a high vibration aspect and a low vibration. If the priest or priestess is doing wonderfully of being clear with their vision, understanding what's going on, they've got great clarity, fantastic. But the mask of that, the other side of it, is they're avoiding the truth. Because guess what? Some visions and some truths, they're very uncomfortable. They can be very challenging for us. You can see how that can flip either way. The server, here's that, beautiful giving server that we hopefully all have in our lives, or very capable of doing ourselves too. We all play these roles to certain degrees. So it's just that loving giving, but we can also have that server flip. It can be masked and it's flipped the other side to they're really insensitive. So they're not in their high vibration, loving place of being a server. It's in the insensitivity. The artisan. So here's the wonderful creativity. This might be your artist, your photographer, your architect, your author. Oh gosh, a lot of those started with A. And so that wonderful creative place, but it can also tip the other way. And if they're really feeling down about themselves, or they've been socialized or had some hard experiences, they're not coloring outside the lines. It's just very ordinary. So they're not creating freely. And so it's the opposite. Warrior. This is not about going out and causing wars. Warriors are just ruthless in a good way with being efficient. These are the people who are like the most incredible project managers, and they can tell you the critical path, and they can tell you the one little thing that can, topple this big 6-month project that's really important to the company. So they're just like a warrior for that efficiency. But the flip side of that is, if that's masked and they're not in the place where they're really, living to their potential in this talent area, it's about waste. So it's the opposite of efficiency, is waste. The scholar, here's our knowledge person. Here's our IT people. Here's our librarians. Here's our teachers, all those people that are speakers. Here's the people that just really excel in knowledge areas. And what's the flip side of that? Missing information. They've got big holes in their knowledge base, or their filter, or they're skewed in a certain area. So it's really, the boat's not really holding water. Our king or queen, that architect, is about power. And the opposite of that, the masked area, is incompleteness. And I find that kind of interesting. I wouldn't have naturally known or said that the opposite of power, I would have gone for powerlessness. But the definition for the archetype is incompleteness. So I find that an interesting distinction. The sage, this is about communication. This is our naturally expressive person. This might be our salesperson. This might be our newscaster, those types of things. But they're working to influence the group, typically in a good way. So that's why the opposite of it, the low vibration, the masked area, is group inertia. This is where you feel like the message is falling on deaf ears. And you're not inspiring, and you're not getting, the inputs from the group. So the communication is just falling flat. But Lorelei Shamayo is who did that wonderful eye reading for me. And she's lovely. I included her website here at ThriveWise. And you don't have to be face to face with her like I was. We were right in person. She was so meant to help me. I couldn't believe this. I tried 3 different times to go to one of the fairs where she was doing this work, and we just couldn't sync schedules, but I was so drawn to her. And she finally asked me, "Where do you live? I'm hearing I'm meant to come to your house." And she came and did it for me one-on-one at my house. So it really was a big deal. So she's created this paradigm of Thrive types. And it also helps you with looking at attracting the partner with complementary energies. Because what we tend to do, because it just feels familiar and safe and comfortable, we tend to, some of us, myself included, tend to go for a person with very, very similar. If they're not matching in all 3 areas, they're matching in at least 2 of them. And that can just bring up, you've got too much of the same energy going. It's better if you can kind of like lean into your differences with your partner and love some of those differences, and just be able to lift each other up because you've got some complementary energies. So Lorelei did a great job of calling me out, because I had gone to her partly because I knew she was also a matchmaker. And she had looked at my 3 most recent partners, 2 boyfriends and my former husband. And she just looked at, photos of their eyes. And she said, "Wendy, do you know you've been with the same person 3 times. I can hardly distinguish between them. And I said, what do you mean? These are 3 very different men. And she said, no, tell me right away what's the same about them. And I said 3 things. I was like, oh my gosh, I happened with the same person 3 times in a row, and need to be looking for some more complementary. And she was also, able to clearly identify what my major archetypes were. So it was just really helpful. It was quite an interesting process. I just didn't know there would be so much depth to it. So I got a lot out of it, and enjoyed it, because as I said, it was not just learning yourself, because isn't that what we really come here for, is to learn ourselves so that we can see ourselves as a spark of the divine, and God is learning more, source is learning more through us. We've talked about that through our experiences, and it just kind of all up levels. So that's what eye readings are about.
Wow. I wasn't familiar with that.
I wasn't either. It was a new one for me, but it just came up. I think it was like a Facebook post or something, and you just know when you're immediately drawn to something. And my guides were like, "Oh, you're supposed to get one of these." And like I said, I was just so amazed that she kindly even drove to my house to do it for me. So we were definitely meant to
to
have
be.
that session. Yeah. And here is human design, and these are the 5 different types of how we are put together, and I'll get into more what these mean. But generators is the most common. It's 38% of the population. And it's what the schematic is showing, for those of you who can see the schematic, is how we just process information and process the world. And then that manifesting generator, the projector, the manifester, and the reflector. And the reflector is the most smallest percent of people, and they're just very, very wide open and just reflecting back to people their energy to them. So it's kind of like having a mirror held up to you. So that one's pretty rare. But what this is just showing, and we'll get into a more detailed slide on the next slide where it'll make more sense, is where your power and energy is. And it is based partly on the chakra system. So you can see those seven chakras in there too. So we can look at the next slide. So this gets more into it. And human design is based on Western astrology. It is based on the chakra system, quantum physics, the Kabbalah, and I Ching. And it was created by a gentleman named Ra Urahu 35 years ago. So it's a pretty new modality. And generator, as I mentioned, is the most common human design. And it's people that naturally just have a lot of energy and power. It's coming from their sacral, which is life force energy, and it is limitless when it's linked properly with the divine. But I happen to be a generator, but you will run out of energy if you are mistakenly using your own energy rather than that divine energy. It's just like what we're taught in Reiki. You have to be the clear vessel or the hollow tube to let it flow through you. It's not coming from you. You're letting it flow through you, which is also why you receive Reiki healing when you're properly bringing it in and having it go to that patient or that client that you're working with, because it's just going through you. But in human design, what's interesting about a generator is their sacral is not directly connected with the throat chakra. And what that can cause. So here you've got all this power, you've got this power center, but it can be hard to express. And it's often shut down by parenting, by other conditioning. So generators, even though they've got this amazing, wonderful, huge energy, again, when it's properly aligned, to help others, not just to help themselves. Because, if you think of a really well-tuned physical generator, if you've ever worked with a physical generator, as long as it's got its fuel, as long as it's got that gas and oil going, think of that as your divine energy. That thing can run for thousands and thousands and thousands of hours, just seamlessly. And there's an open aura with the generator. And because of that open aura, it's best to respond to life versus attempting to manifest or make it happen. So, because that can just be exhausting for a generator, a human design type, because they're trying to be something they're not if they're trying to be a manifester. Yes, we do all need to manifest, but if they're trying to manifest all day long in every way, that is not fitting with who they are naturally. So it's best for them to more learn to ride the wave, picture them as this beautiful surfer, and for them to just assess what's the energy around me that I want to work with. Where's the flow the best for today? I could work on these 10 things. Where am I feeling, the most flow and the most aligned, and work with that? So they're learning to go with the flow in a powerful dance. And I had a human design reading, and it was really surprising to me. And I had to, it was kind of like, hand to forehead moment, wipe egg off face, because the gal called me out and she said, how often do you ask yourself, will this make me happy, before you say yes to a request? And I kind of looked at her and said, pretty much never. And it just showed me why I was so exhausted and depleted and scattered and overcommitted and overbooked, because she called me out as a people pleaser. And I was like, what? What? And so that just really changed things for me, of just now when I get a request, sometimes I'll need to say, I need to think about that. Let me get back to you, or let me sleep on that. And honestly, that wasn't in my vocabulary before. So I am a much happier, more powerful, better person and generator with much, much more energy, because of, having had this reading. So, and you can kind of see in the schematic, again, those of you who are looking at it, at the top, we've got our head for inspiration that would align with the crown chakra. We've got the conceptualization, going on in our mind and brain. We've got our heart for our willpower, solar plexus for emotion. You can feel in your gut what you're feeling in your emotion. You can feel it in your heart too, but a lot of people feel it in the solar plexus, and the sacral with that big life force energy. And that just aligns perfectly for women, because think about where is your uterus? Where are your fallopian tubes? They are in that sacral area. That's where we create life from. So it's just right there in our physiology. And then the root, that's where the stress can show up, but it's also the fuel. So again, learning how to use it correctly. And the spleen in a generator is the source of intuition in a lot of ways. And then again, the throat for the communication. And the last point I'd like to make is, because the throat is not directly connected with the sacral, the source of power in a generator, these are people, even though they may seem expressive, even though they may seem like a talker, they often can end up with thyroid issues, either hypo or hyper, and or thyroid nodules, because they're having trouble getting that to flow correctly, so that they're just aligned with the divine and letting that flow out of their communication and their speech. So have you heard of human design, Gregg, or is this a new one for you like it was for me?
Yeah, it's a new one. It reminds me of the Briggs-Myers personality test system. Are you familiar with that?
I am.
But this from a spiritual perspective. It kind
Right.
of reminds me of that with the
Right.
personality
Yeah.
types.
Yes, that's a good analogy. I hadn't thought of that. So let's talk personal numerology. So out of all the different types of numbers that are related to your date of birth, your time of birth, and your full legal name as it was on your birth certificate when you were born, your original name, the most important one is your life path number. That is one of the main reasons people come and do a session with me is they're like just trying to understand, what is my life purpose? What am I meant to be doing? Am I on the right path? Am I living my life purpose? Am I living my larger soul mission? So this is cool because with some simple math, you can figure out what your life path number is. And then you can Google what is life path. There's numbers 1 through 9, or there's master numbers 11, 22, and 33. So there's 12 in total. So here's 2 examples. The way you calculate your life path is you write out your full birth date, all in digits. And then we're going to reduce it to a single digit unless you add up to a master number of 11, 22, or 33. So for example, if your date of birth is December 14th, 1995, that's 12/14/1995, you add up 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 4 plus 1 plus 9 plus 9 plus 5, just each of the digits, which gives you 32. And then you further reduce it to get to a single digit. 3 plus 2 equals 5. So we'll take, what is a life path 5 about? So life path 5 is known for being travelers, seekers of a higher truth, whatever that means for them. Life path 5s tend to be resourceful, ambitious, focused on objectives, putting all of your heart and energy into work and personal projects. 5s tend to be adaptable, brave, charming, social, easily the center of attention. And 5, that also makes you think of the 5 senses and wanting to experience life has to offer, full speed ahead. And 5s tend to be quick-witted, self-sufficient. This is the person to call on during a crisis because they can navigate unexpected shifts and curveballs, often with charisma and grace. And there's always a flip side to everything. This was all like the high vibrational, best aspects of a life path 5. But on the flip side, they can struggle with commitment. So they need to find a balance between their need for novelty and the power of stability. I can tell you, the example I used was my eldest daughter. That is her birth date. And this fits her pretty much to a T. She could not wait to go away to college, specifically wanted to go out of state so she'd be experiencing another place. She was only going to go to a school that had a semester abroad, because that was a way to go and live in another country for 3 or 4 months. And she is very resourceful, ambitious, focused. She's currently finishing up veterinary school. So she's in her 4th year of veterinary school. And she knew since she was in elementary school that that was what she hoped and wanted to do. So all that heart and energy going into that. Very, very, very charming, very, very social, and manages to balance so many things so well. So she's valedictorian in high school. She's homecoming queen. She did like 500 hours of community service, and just was, it's like, oh my gosh, I want to be this child. It's just, and just all while being lovely and kind, and just a wonderful, wonderful person. And she is one of those people that you go to during a crisis. I bet you there's also a lot of people that work in emergency rooms that are fives, because they just have got that cool head and can respond to very, very difficult things with that charisma and grace, and just know what to do. And she hasn't had any issues with commitment, and she seems to find enough novelty in her life with being still really, really stable. And then here's another example of a master number. So if you have a birth date that adds up to 11 or 22 or 33, those are the only three numbers that you don't reduce, because they've got their own life path number. Here's an example. Life path master number 33 typically came here to be in service to others. A lot of emotional sensitivity. They have a healing aura. They value creative expression. They want to nurture and give to others. They have mastered the art of being selfless without injuring the self. That's very, very important, because you don't want things to be at the expense of your own health, etc. It's considered the most spiritually, quote, evolved of the life paths. That's why it's the final life path. But we circulate and can go into different ones. It's not like we go sequentially. There are downsides to being a master number 33. They feel the suffering of others the most potently, which can make them have a lot of health issues if they haven't learned how to be sovereign, and if they haven't learned how to set boundaries and limits and to take care of themselves first. But 33s are typically driven to make the world a kinder and better place, but only if they embrace their responsibility. Often that's not done until middle-aged or older. They are often compassionate, creative, sensitive, and responsible. They can be perfectionists. They can be controlling. They can have high moral standards, which really can get kind of judgy, and just are not very kind, and need to release what others think of them. And I am a master number 33. So is my youngest daughter. And that has led to some very, very interesting things for the two of us. And we are estranged, and it's not such a surprise when you read this. And I went to a spiritual numerologist. She was the one, I'm summarizing what she shared with me. And one of the things that she was really, really able to show me too was, she said, yes, there's lots of upside and great things about any of these life paths. But she said, I can also tell you that we can statistically prove that people who have addictions, people who have all kinds of problems, they are most often a master number 33, because they just can't handle it, and it's just too much. So very, very prone to opting out and just saying, no, I'm not going to do it. It's too much. So 33s can need a lot of support and a lot of healing. And there's no shame in that. I see that as courage, like you were describing, Gregg, with the theta healing, just taking courage. So that's kind of my summary of what the life path number is about. So any comments on that? Had you heard of this before, Gregg, of being able to have spiritual numerology done for you?
Yeah, I've heard of that. This particular life path number, I've not heard of. So yeah.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
it's interesting. This type of thing is that, adding up the numbers and reducing them down. There's actually a step in the Eternal Tarot where you actually do something like that based upon the number of the
Oh,
cards. So
sure. Well, the more modalities and techniques we learn, the more crossover we see between them. You can see those bridges between them.
right.
And what's on our next slide? Was there one more on numerology, or did that finish the topic?
No, that finished it.
Okay, it did. It did. So if we could go back then, I just want to make one more comment. Another thing that working with a spiritual numerologist can do for you is they can help you understand what your karma is, because karma has specific associated, and karma, don't think of it as punishment, think of it as unbalanced energy. It's a debt that needs to be repaid. Think of it like as the teeter-totter or the seesaw. You've got to get it back in balance. So there's something that wasn't learned and needs to be taken care of. So I sensed I had karma when I saw her, and there's a gal named Deborah Stelfox, and I met her when she did a talk at an evening program that I went to. And it was a pretty big dinner meeting. There were maybe 30 of us there, and she did some live demonstrations just with people in the audience, and she'd have them just call out, simple things like she said, like, "What's your birth date?" And she was just doing readings. It was really a great demo. I could not wait to run up to her at the end of it and say, "I need your business card. I would love to have a reading with you. How can I hire you?" And the reading that she did for me was expected to be 1.5 hours. It took 6 hours. We had to reschedule twice because there was so much information that downloaded and came through. She changed my life in such positive ways. She helped me let go of so much heartbreak. It was a really, really big deal. And she'd asked me at the beginning before she sent any of the information to me. So there's like this simple intake where you share these different facts with her, the date of birth, the time of birth, the location of your birth, your full legal name. Did you ever go by another name, for instance, when you were married, or ever change your name? Those sorts of things. You share that. And then she puts together a lot of information and emails it to you. And then you get together by phone and do the reading. But she specializes in karma and looking at your numerology around karma. And I sensed and knew, and if you think, a good way to think of where might I have karma, where am I still mastering my lessons, think of areas of your life where things are hard, where they just do not seem to go well. So she just asked me at the beginning, she said, where do you think you might have karma? And I said, in the romance area, and something to do with power, abuse of power. And she said, "You nailed it." That's exactly. And then she was able to show me right from my name, my birth date, and my time of birth and my location. She was able to show me, she said, "Here's why." And remember, we choose our parents. Yes, our parents have to agree. We choose where and when we're going to be born, because that determines our personal astrology. It also determines our personal numerology. So obviously I came in to work on that and to address the issues. So then she asked me, "Well, what have your romances been like?" And I was kind of like trying not to shudder, and trying not to do the pitchfork in the head, and but she could already see it. She could already see it in all the numbers, and she was able to tell me why. And she said, "You've attracted a lot of heartbreakers for a very good reason. This is you clearing your karma for having been a heartbreaker yourself. You've got multiple counts of karma for having been a heartbreaker. This is your life to clear it. So let's learn the lessons. Let's figure out what's going on." And she also was able to do some fantastic things that really freed me up and helped me lighten up my heart and my energy. We did a very complete, comprehensive reading, where we were also looking, with permission, at the numerology of my former husband, of my former boyfriend who woke me up spiritually, of both my daughters, of myself with my mother. So we were just able to look at all these relationships in a really, really powerful way. And there is something called a soulmate match where they can prove, you look at the 6 different aspects of personal numerology of that individual and in comparison with you. And my former husband and I, for instance, we were what was called a weak soulmate match. We matched on 3 of the 6 criteria. My former boyfriend that woke me up spiritually and that I had so many lives with, we were a 6 out of 6 match, which the numerologist said she had never seen before. And I'm like, well, isn't more better? And her answer was, how did that go? And I said, highest highs, lowest lows, loved each other so much, drove each other insane. The intensity was off the charts. And her reply was, it's not your fault. You know, it's right there in your numerology and your astrology probably. And she was right. I was able to find it there too, with a professional helping me. So just let it go. Just forgive yourself and realize it's what you've set up and work through it, because that was way too intense for anyone to be able to maintain the relationship. So we did the right thing by breaking up and then working together as spiritual seekers. So we did the exact thing we were meant to do. But it was like the first time I could take a breath and really start to understand all these things, because it was amazing how it was all there in the numbers. And she was able to explain to me too, why my youngest daughter and I have been finding it hard, and why I've been finding a relationship with my mother hard, and she finds it hard with me. And it's just try and keep your sense of humor, respect and love the other person, have your boundaries, and just do your work. But it was so insightful and so helpful to me to find this information.
Great. Thank you, Wendy.
All right, so then let's just wrap up, and please join us Sunday, June 12th. We'll be back on our normal schedule, which is the 2nd and 4th Sunday of the month at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And you can go and find the archives of all the programs. There's almost 50 broadcasts now at wakingupspiritually.com, and just click on the broadcast tab. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel if that's how you like to get your information, and the link is here. Please rate and review us on Apple iTunes or your favorite podcast app, because that helps other people find us, as well as it'll just pop up when there's a new one available. And visit Gregg at his website, which is Gregg, Gregg, Kirk, Kirk.com. And you'll see his book on the gratitude curve there, as well as all the wonderful things that he offers and is doing. And you can find me at my website, which is my full name, wendyrosewilliams.com. And that's where you can request your complimentary 15-minute phone appointment with me and just see if I may be of service to you and help you up level in different ways. And I hope you could hear from today. Gregg and I are both always just open to learning and just love to be able to share some of the things that have been helpful for us, because it can be overwhelming when you get out there and you're like, oh my goodness, which sort of healing or reading, what should I request? So we can be good generalists for you and also help triage you where appropriate.
Definitely. All right, Wendy, we'll see everybody at our regularly scheduled time. I think, what did we say next?
June 12th.
June 12th, yes. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks on a Sunday.
Second Sunday of the month.
Right.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.